Good evening. My name is John Horn. I'm the host of The Frame on KPCC. Thank you all for coming out. On behalf of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and KPCC, I want to welcome you to this special in-person screening of Pan's Labyrinth. And this evening is made possible through the generosity of the California Arts Council. We have an amazing panel of filmmakers. I want to bring them up. Let's start with, producer Barta Navarro. Oscar-winning cinematographer Guillermo Navarro. Actor Ivana Baquero. Actor Doug Jones. And Guillermo is going to be a true movie star and make his entrance. So we'll go ahead and start with Adam. I'm sure he's going to join us in just a second. I want to go back to about 10 years ago, and I think it's really important that this film is a centerpiece of Latin American and Latino art in Los Angeles, because 11 years ago, this movie comes out. It becomes the highest grossing Spanish language movie of all time. It wins 3 Academy Awards, and it's still the number 5 highest grossing foreign language film of all time. So I want you to go back to that year when this film came out and what this film represented and what it meant to Latino filmmakers in the United States.
Hello. Well, I think it's, I saw it again and I liked it so much. I think it is a very important film for...
There's the movie star's entrance, the cinematographer.
It's a very big line.
And it's a film that was shown all over the world, and its presence was very, very important. And I think now it's a classic, actually. And I don't know, but it was, well, it's there, and for me it's the opportunity to make this film was so important in my life. And well, it's there, and I hope new generations can see it, and I don't think time doesn't do anything wrong to the film.
It ages like a very good bottle of wine. Guillermo, people who've worked with Guillermo del Toro know that he keeps amazing notebooks, and those notebooks are filled with amazing sketches of characters and colors and ideas that he has for his films. But it's one thing to write something in a notebook, and it's another thing to turn that into a motion picture. So when you were first talking with Guillermo del Toro about this film, what did he show you in his notebooks, and how did you translate that into a language visually for this film?
The notebook is really like an opening to a portal, and it's really conceptual. It's nothing to do with storyboarding or anything like that. They're images that somehow we know they're going to be part of that universe, and that's also the spaces and symbols and all this. It's really like material, like the clay that you have to work with, and. Something that was very important for us in this movie was that from the get-go, we have to bring the audience in a comfortable space where that parallel reality was there. It was familiar. We could just step in and out of it. And for that, we had to build a language, a visual language where the girl, Ophelia, the grown-up here, could easily walk in and out of that parallel reality. So we were able to build bridges that for that we had to take the risks of going and doing things that were artificial in a way, but that allowed all this craziness to belong. No? So, for instance, we had things like in the camera truck, there was a piece of trunk, which was a tree, that we were able to go and sweep by it, and then we would be in one place or the other, or the ability to have a color palette that would make no sense because the world outside is cold and the world inside is warm, and the world of the fighters is warm, and of the women it's warm, and the military world is cold, etc. etc. There were many things to be catching up with. So it does start with that conceptual world, but then it's the ingredients to build with it.
Ivana, when Guillermo was casting this film, he was looking for a younger girl, maybe age 8 or 9, and you came in much, much older at the age of 10, I think, for your audition, and you did the film when you were 11. Do you remember back to that first meeting with Guillermo? Because I think he looked at almost 1,000 actors before he cast this part.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like as we were discussing with Berta before, the movie to some extent I think changed everyone's life in one way or another. In this movie, it obviously changed my life so much. It opened so many doors. But yeah, I remember that first time. I had actually started acting when I was 8. So right before Pan's Labyrinth, when I was about 11 years old, I got a manager for the first time ever. And he was the one who brought me the audition for Pan's Labyrinth. And I remember going in, and I had these sides, but then Guillermo looked at me and he said, "Oh, but it's this other scene that we need you to do, so can you just quickly memorize it and perform?" So there I was, like about 10 years old, and I did it, and he really enjoyed it. And then I got a call back, and I went in again, and that was a pretty emotional scene. In fact, it was the scene where I'm talking to the mom's belly towards the end of the movie, and I'm telling my brother that, you know, things are hard in the real world. So he really enjoyed the scene. I remember his wife was there too, and she was bawling her eyes out. And that day is the day where he actually came to me and he offered me the role with his script in hand. And I was like 11 years old, but it was, you know, it was the beginning of truly a very magical journey.
So the lesson is, if you can make the director's wife cry during an audition,
Get the
you're
role.
probably in pretty good shape. Doug, how many films have you made with how many films had you made with Guillermo at that point when you did this film?
Before this, I had done Mimic and the first Hellboy movie, also with Guillermo Navarro here, who our cinematographer. So Pan's Labyrinth was number 3 for me. But now I sit here today with a total of 6 movies with him under my belt, including the recent Shape of Water. I know,
Yes.
I know. So excited.
You'll see Doug in all of his amphibian beauty in Shape of Water in a couple of weeks. When he talks to you about playing the Fawn and Pale Man, does he have a design for you? And what does that design mean in terms of what it means physically, in terms of your transformation, of how much time it's actually going to take you to get into this getup?
Right. He never tells me how long it's going to take. I just have to find out on the day. The Fawn took me about 5 hours to get into makeup, and the Pale Man was about 6 hours a day. And those, the makeup artists, the Oscar-winning makeup artists, DDT Efectos Especiales, David Marti and Montse Ribe there's the dearest people and so incredibly talented, making these creatures come to be on me. But transforming a tall, skinny, goofy human into a fawn or a man with no eyes in his hands, it takes finding it in here and then going through the makeup process and the tests and all, so much to discover. What he said to me about the Fawn specifically, he only gave me a couple of notes. We have a shorthand now, Del Toro and I. He'll say a couple things, I'll go, got it. He said with the Fawn, he said, Dougie, I want you to, I want you to study the back end of barn animals. Like cows, goats, how do their hooves meet the ground, and they shake flies off. So I'll work it in. I got it. So if you saw me kind of do that a couple times, that was from that note. The other note that he gave me was that the fawn would be aging backwards. If you happen to notice, every time you see
prettier and prettier.
Gets prettier and more auburn colored, and his horns grow back and his eyes clear up as the movie progresses, because little Ophelia starts believing in me again and in our world, and that strengthens the whole underworld. Yeah. Isn't it? It's so weird to see you grown up. Oh my, this is wonderful.
It's weird to see me grown up after watching the movie.
I love it.
One of the sad twists of the story is that you were in makeup for 5 or 6 hours while you're learning Spanish, right?
Well, there's the other part of that story.
Okay.
I,
Or trying to learn Spanish?
Well, no, when offered this part, I read the script in English, wiped a tear away, closed the last page, and said, "I have to be. Of course, yes, thank you." And then I saw the email that said it's going to be in the Spanish language. I don't speak Spanish, and I told him, "I'm going to ruin your movie, and you really have made a horrible mistake." Now, what actor would say that, by the way? What he said to me was, "No, you're the only one who can play the fawn. You can count to 10 for all I care. I'll dub over it later, but you're playing the fawn." So I couldn't leave him with counting to 10, and I couldn't leave you with counting to 10 in front. We played those scenes, so I did actually buckle down and learn the language of the film. I don't know Spanish on the street, but I did know the language of this film. I studied I had my English and Spanish translations, and knew what was happening all along. So that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow. Guillermo, there is not a lot of dialogue in this film. The language of the film is visual, and it's visual through camera moves, and it's visual through color. So what does that mean in terms of your conversations with Guillermo del Toro about how you're going to tell the narrative of this film when there isn't very much dialogue? And what does that mean in terms of your responsibility and your department and how they're going to tell this story with very little narrative dialogue to drive it?
Well, it's all about film language. So it's the story told with images, and that it's a camera that is looking, that is searching, and is finding, and there are entire scenes that are just images. One of the icon scenes is the pale man, and it's one shot after the other, and finding that language is not something that you just execute. There's a whole process of every movie that we've done together has a language that serves the purpose of that movie. It's not that we have a recipe hitting or in our backpack we have the solution. So it is a very complex and nice process where there's also a very important, let's say it's not a rule, but it's like a statement we want to make that we don't do coverage. There's not such thing as the over and the close-up and the close-up and then the reverse and the master, none of that. The only scene in this movie that required a little bit of that is the scene where the captain is at the dinner and the table because everybody's stationary. Mm-hmm. And even there we managed by moving the mother and excusing herself to move the camera. But it's really, the rule is find the shot, take all the chances, and allow the visuals to tell the story. There's other things that I just remember when I saw the movie. Again, it's there were incredible limitations that we had on location, and I just remember this. For instance, we couldn't afford to do all the night for nights. We have a lot of woods and big spaces, etc. So I would say that a very strong percentage of the nights are day for nights.
So you just shoot with lower...
I'm not going to tell you how.
Okay. No secrets shared here at the Academy. Okay.
I can tell you what. You won't get it. But
so
anyway,
you're shooting day for night?
Yes, some of it.
Secretly.
But for that, you have to have a reference of what a night for night is. And then that night for night has to be treated with certain artificiality. So the first opportunity in the movie for that is when they go out of the state and he kills the peasants. So that is the night for night reference of the movie. And then from there on, everything is to be, so for instance, all those scenes in the river when they're on the way to the guerrilla camp, etc., they're in the river. And you see spots of sun. But at this point in the movie, you have completely swallowed that there's parallel realities and nothing necessarily is real per real. Actually, we want you to believe that, is this her imagination? Is this really happening? Is not? Can we really go in different portals and cross avenues like that? And then this movie teaches us, yes. For that, you have to allow the language to guide you. And that is
There is also a tremendous amount of real violence in this film.
Real violence.
Real violence. There are some real.
It's a movie against fascism.
I know that.
I think we should be a little bit aware of what's going on.
I am aware of that. But when you're
It's the
making,
world of you're with me or against me.
but are you talking as you're making the film about it being a parable, a fairy tale, a political allegory? What are the conversations that you're having about what this film is? Because it's not always what it seems.
Well, it's all that. It's a very big picture. It's also for Mexico, for instance, the experience of the Spanish Civil War represents a lot. So we were the country that received the Spanish exile. So we were very in touch with what that drama was. So the Spanish Civil War is that double tragedy where the Allies didn't go to Spain. They were left behind. They were untouched. So all this is what this movie is about. It's a movie against fascism. It's a movie against sharing a vision of that there are things to be done, that you have to live your life the way you want to live, and you have to live your life, and you have to disobey, and you have to find ways to go about it.
Ivana, when you are acting, there are a lot of things that are probably present in front of you, like Doug and his 5 and 6 hour makeup. And there are probably a lot of things that aren't, like fairies flying about you or visual effects. So how does Guillermo direct you? And as a young actor, what does he tap into in terms of your imagination to get a performance that looks as if you're reacting to things that really aren't in the shot at all?
I actually had a lot of fun doing all the green screens. There was actually a lot of green screen elements, and as I was watching the movie again, I was recalling all of those moments. I do have to say, obviously, Doug and a lot of things were real. The toad was real too. The fairies were not, for instance, but for me, there was always they'd always have an element of something real so that I could kind of follow it with my eyes. So in that regard, it wasn't that challenging. And I remember, when I had the grape and the fairies were pulling the grape, Guillermo came to me and he taught me exactly how he wanted me to do that. So I had really specific references. Guillermo was always there, giving me very, very specific and meticulous directions, and I think he did that with everyone, like even just how to walk, how to breathe, all of those things. So props to him essentially for all of those things. Had it not been for him, probably it wouldn't have come out as specific and realistic.
Doug, this seems like a very basic question, but how do you actually see when you're walking around a set in your costume? Are you actually able to navigate around?
Well, there's another challenge. I'm thinking at the end, it's like, well, I had a hard time on this movie, you guys. But the fawn eyes were set pretty wide, and so I was looking through the tear duct area. So that was a little tiny triangle here and here. Zero periphery to see. So I was just looking straight ahead, so I could there she is. So, right. And I was also 7 feet tall in my hoof feet, and Ivana was
2 feet.
Exactly. So our height difference was ridiculous. So, make him 7 feet tall and then make him crouch into the frame with. So every shot was like, get lower, lower, lower. Like, got it. Okay, got it. So.
Who needs the gym?
right, exactly. So that was a toughie, and then the pale man, of course, was another issue. The eyeballs in the hands didn't really work.
Spoiler.
I know. Sorry to ruin that one for you. And Santa Claus isn't real. Come on. So if you notice on the pale man's face, the nostrils were rather high and large. So I kind of could look through that nostril with that eye and that nostril with that eye. So it was like, coming out of that at the end of the day, I was like, my eyes readjusting was like, So.
And could you hear? Because I remember your ears moved, and you had a little.
You had a motor, right? A
I
servo?
had motors in my head. Could you hear them when they were going?
Yeah.
Well, you're right, because the top half of my face was puppeteered by David and Muncie. And so because it was thick enough, and I operated the bottom part. This was all glued to my mouth, and so you saw me actually doing the talking. But the eyes and the eyebrows and the squinting and all that was puppeteered. The ears flapping, puppeteered. That was all motors, servos in your head while you're trying to listen to an 11-year-old girl like kind of talk to you like this, right? So it's like, ah.
And as he's speaking Spanish, by the way.
Right. Oh, it was hard, you guys. It's not that bad.
It looks good, though.
Berta, I want to ask you about the making of this movie because it's no secret that Guillermo had a very difficult time making Mimic with Miramax, and he wanted to make this film independently. He didn't want to make it with a studio, and he wanted to make it in Spanish, and he wanted to make it in Spain. So what does that mean in terms of putting together the financing and the production and getting your locations, because he doesn't want this to be an American studio film, even though Warner Brothers and Picture House end up distributing it?
Well, I think that the story was really in Spanish, and also I think that we did these 3 films, and we did Espinazo del Diablo, Devil's Backbone before, so
Right.
we did have. We did have a connection with Spain, and at that moment it was very important to do Pan's Labyrinth. And so we did go with Telecinco, and we financed it completely with Tequila Gang and Telecinco. And I think that also these films, that the 3 films I did with him, that's Kronos and Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth, the 3 of them are told or through the eyes and through the eyes of a child. Mm-hmm. And that's also, I think, the child within Guillermo. He has saved that child to create these worlds, you know. If it wasn't through Ivan, through that child, it would have been impossible really to believe in all this fantasy, no? So I'm very close, and we had worked together. I knew exactly what he wanted, and he needed that profound collaboration with Guillermo and with all the people we worked with, but basically Eugenio Caballero also. He did a great job. And David, I think his work is amazing. And the actors, I think, are great. So it is an authentic Spanish film.
Absolutely. Amen. And we should say, too, that Guillermo did the subtitles himself because he wasn't happy with the way his own film was translated, so he did the subtitles himself. I'm going to have one last question for the actors, but I want to talk about the sound design, because I think the sound design for this film is unbelievable. And I think if you listen closely to the creatures and the doors and everything in this film, it really suggests what a master of sound Guillermo is, and I think you can hear it. You're nodding your head, Doug. Was that something that was really important to him in the making of this film, that the sound design be as good as everything else?
It feels that way. Even like when Ivana picked up my eyeballs and you could hear them going on the plate, it was like, okay, yeah, every little detail. Yeah. And oftentimes in a lot of his films, he tends to do a voice or two himself. So I don't know if those fairies were him pitched up or not. It's worth investigating. I don't remember.
I think he did the voice of the frog. Is that right?
Oh,
I think he did.
Yeah.
Ivana, I know you were a very young actor when you made this film. Watching it again tonight, what do you remember about the making of it? What fond memories do you have when you watch it again?
I remember everything. I think obviously it was such an intense experience. It was pretty much like going to acting school in those 3 months. I learned so much, and I had to watch the movie so many times because of the promotion and because we were lucky enough to go to all these festivals, that I really have a vivid memory of everything, even of, you know, the process of developing Ophelia, of all the conversations with Guillermo. There's a few moments that are nice to kind of, you know, reminiscence and remember, but I I really do remember everything, and it always makes me cry. It always does, no matter how many times I watched it. I was there, and
Me
I was
too.
like,
But
yes.
tonight, I know.
But usually, when we do a Q&A of Pan's Labyrinth, it's usually before the film, and it's the first time I actually had to do one after the film, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this now. I think that's why he went to the bathroom.
Busted. This film was very important for all of you in your careers. So before we leave, you're next doing Shape of Water with Guillermo. Is that right?
That is correct. That comes out December 8th in theaters everywhere. Thank you. As well as I'm currently playing Lieutenant Commander Saru in Star Trek Discovery.
And Ivana, what about you?
I'm currently shooting a show called The Shannara Chronicles,
Yes.
and the second season is airing on Spike TV at the moment.
Guillermo, what's next for you?
I've continued shooting movies. I started directing some television. I just finished directing my first feature, and that I shot too. And now I'm going to go to London for 7 months to shoot Dr. Dolittle.
Oh, my goodness. And Berta, outside of making sure your brother doesn't get into too much trouble, what are you up to?
Well, I keep on working. I just finished shooting a film in Sonora's desert. I'm a little crazy at my age, but I was there. So I still hope to do more films but the opportunity to do these 3 films with Guillermo del Toro and with Guillermo Navarro, my brother, was amazing. And I'll keep it there in my heart forever.
I want to thank the 700 people who came out tonight to watch this movie. And I want to thank the people who made it. Doug, Ivana, Guillermo, Berta. Thank you for bringing us your film. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.